Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our weekly webinar with Railbookers. Today with a focus on Alaska, which is a fantastic destination to explore by rail with Alaska Railroad. And we have a wonderful collection of itineraries to talk to you all about today, featuring the great highlight destinations throughout Alaska, including Anchorage, Talkeetna, Denali, Fairbanks, and more. My name is Chris David. I'm going to be your host for this morning's presentation. My role within Railbookers is the Vice President of Sales for Canada for Railbookers and our sister company, Amtrak Vacations. I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and we're going to be together this morning for about a half an hour, possibly a little longer, depending on how many questions we get at the end. To kick things off this morning, let me give you a quick overview of what we're going to be covering in the presentation. First off, I'll be talking to you a little bit about rail travel and what it's like exploring Alaska and other destinations by rail. We'll be taking a deep dive at all the popular destinations throughout Alaska, and I'll also be covering a little bit of information not directly pertinent to the main destination that we're focusing on, which is Alaska, and telling you a little bit more about how our vacations work at Railbookers, and also so important at this point in time, given the situation that we're in and the ongoing concerns, even though we're reaching the kind of final stage, I think, of the pandemic and its effects on all of us. We will be talking a little bit about what Alaska Railroad and other train companies around the world are doing to ensure that it's safe and to provide peace of mind for you if you're considering your next trip, venturing out on a rail vacation. A quick introduction to our company. We, as you may know, are a train specialist travel company. Our corporate parent company, if you like, is called the Yankee Leisure Group. And we have the two brands, Railbookers and Amtrak Vacations. In the US, our company actually has the honor of being the exclusive tour operator for Amtrak. So we work directly in partnership with Amtrak, providing all of the vacation packages, the leisure travel experiences, using Amtrak as the means of transportation, but going into the US national parks and other great vacation destinations throughout the lower 48 US states. Our other brand is Railbookers, and that's what we're talking about today. Railbookers is the company that covers train-related experiences and itineraries and vacations all over the world, including in Europe, up here in Canada, in Alaska, and luxury trains and specialty trains all around the world. The reason, by the way, that Alaska is not a part of the Amtrak Vacations portfolio is that Alaska has its own rail company. Amtrak doesn't go north of the lower 48 US states. So Alaska Railroad is the company that we work with under our Railbookers brand, providing all of the great experiences that we're going to be talking about in just a moment. We have a brand new collection of digital brochures that I want to tell you all about, just recently released and available through our website, providing collections of our popular train vacations, focusing specifically on luxury journeys. So these are those luxury trains like the Orient Express, the Rocky Mountaineer, the Golden Eagle Trans-Siberian Express, and these other 5-star luxury rail experiences, all collected in one brochure, as well as cruise extensions. If you're considering doing a European cruise or river cruise in perhaps later this year or into 2022, going by rail and exploring further inland beyond the cruise ports or the river ports is really a fantastic way to enhance your vacation and ensure that you might get the most out of the destination that you're visiting. For example, if you're doing a Rhine cruise that ends in Basel, it is so easy to connect from Basel by rail to some of the great train journeys going through the Swiss Alps. Similarly, from Danube, you can go up and explore the imperial cities of Eastern Europe, like Prague, Vienna, and Budapest, if you're doing a Danube cruise that ends in Budapest. We have the unique ability with Railbookers to enable you to book and confirm train arrangements up to 2 years in advance. So all of the itineraries we're looking at today going into Alaska, as well as all of our European trips, Canada, anywhere around the world, can be booked a full 2 years in advance. What's more, you can lock in the rate with a relatively small deposit of only $250 per person right now, even if you're traveling 2 years from now. We're all expecting in the travel industry that as a result of pent-up demand, people just desperate to go out and start traveling again, having been deprived of the ability to do international travel for the past 18 months. When things start opening up, prices will really increase based on, the simple laws of supply and demand. As people start booking and inquiring about travel to destinations around the world, the prices will increase. So the ability to book now for into the first half of 2023 can be a great opportunity for you to save, to ensure that you get the best possible rate for that future vacation that you have in mind. Want to just point out our website. We've just relaunched a brand new website for Railbookers, which is fantastic. It enables you to search by destination, by type of train. You can search by luxury trains, by cruise extensions, the type of experience you're looking for as well. The website has a lot of fantastic new features built into it, including the ability to see all the options for hotels in every destination on every one of the itineraries. So if you're looking at a European trip, for example, you can go into that day-by-day itinerary, and on the night that the trip will be in Rome, you will get shown on the website all the 12 different hotel options you can choose from in Rome between 3 and 5 stars. At Railbookers, we work directly in partnership with all the European rail operators and other train companies around the world, including, of course, Amtrak and Via Rail here in Canada, but also Trenitalia, Deutsche Bahn, Renfe. These are all our direct partners. What that means is that when you book your rail vacation through us, we have access to any train segment for any destination around the world. We can book that in real time, instantaneously for you, as far in advance as 2 years out. There are a lot of reasons why people have found it really easy and enjoyable working with Railbookers to book independent trips into Europe and other destinations around the world. One being that we are an expert in train travel. When you're looking to plan a vacation using the train, there are a lot of aspects that can be a little confusing and a little intimidating. So when you're speaking to a company that specializes in rail travel, you have somebody on the phone who can advise you exactly how many trains, for example, per day between this and that European destination. What's the best route to choose? In Europe, there are over 3,000 rail routes and 30,000 train stations. So that expertise really makes it a lot easier and more convenient to book any kind of independent trip through Europe, where going by train is almost always the best way to get around on that high-speed rail network throughout the European continent. We can book 2 years in advance. As I mentioned, we have incredible flexibility with our booking. You can cancel 5 days prior to your departure, and you would receive a credit that is completely flexible, can be used for any trip in any destination. Railbookers has a huge selection of train travel options, ranging from those luxury trains to the shortest trips, even through the US, through our sister brand, Amtrak Vacations. Really, when it comes to rail travel, what's difficult and complex for others, is our bread and butter. It's what we do every day, so it'll be easy for us to put that together and get your vacation organized. We have a worldwide footprint with offices in Australia, the UK, Canada, and the US. So wherever you may be traveling on a vacation with Railbookers, we've got your back. We'll be able to help you out with 24-hour emergency support in destination. And everything that we do at Railbookers is customizable, really important, to remember as you're looking at today's presentation, the itineraries we're going to be focusing on in Alaska, any of them can be amended to suit your specific needs, adding nights in a specific destination, adding additional destinations that are on the rail network if you so wish. You can also always upgrade your accommodation on the train to first class, and you can upgrade your hotels from 3 to 4 or 5-star options in any of the destinations along the route. That's a big feature with Railbookers, that ability to add a little bit of luxury in a specific destination, in perhaps 1 or 2 places along your vacation route. We give you that ability to customize by day to ensure that you're always in the hotel in every night of the trip, in every destination along the route that meets your specific needs. We have a new maximum flexibility offer if you're concerned about what your options are, if you have to cancel your trip for any reason. I think this is it's become a bigger concern for many people during COVID. With Railbookers, you can cancel up to 5 days prior to departure. By the way, I do recognize there are only 30 days in June and apologize, that is a typo. So this is for bookings up until the end of June. You can cancel 5 days out and receive a 2-year future travel credit. The thing to remember with that is it's completely flexible. So whatever funds you have on file towards your trip, say it's your deposit of $250 for a couple, so $500 is on file at the time you have to cancel. That $500 will be held as a credit for 2 years, and it can be used towards absolutely anything. So even if you'd booked a European trip going over to Switzerland and you decide that you can't or are no longer able to do that, you can put it towards a rail journey right at home in the US. We have a fantastic new promotion available actually just for the remainder of this week. So if you're interested in putting something on deposit with Railbookers, please give us a call to make sure that you take advantage of this offer. $400 per couple of any trip in any destination. That's up to $400 depending on the duration of the trip. Here we have a quick look at the European rail network map, just to give you a sense of how kind of intimidating it can be figuring out how to plan an independent trip using the train throughout Europe. Again, 30,000 rail stations. We'd be able to talk you through that. It's all done in real time, working directly with you or with your travel advisor. We always recommend, it's a great idea to work with a travel advisor. The price is exactly the same whether you were to book directly with us or through a travel agent. And the travel advisors are, deeply familiar, very experienced with all these aspects of European travel. We'd be able to work with them on your behalf, putting the itinerary together, doing it in real time, providing an instant quote, and customizing it to your specific needs. Here are some of the things that train companies are doing to make sure that it's safe and to provide peace of mind, especially given the concerns, the health and safety requirements with COVID. Mask wearing is required for passengers and staff on board with Alaska Railroad. That's in the open seating areas. Alaska Railroad is not an overnight train, so there is no private compartment where you can remove your mask. So mask wearing will be required, except in the restaurant section and when you're eating or drinking. With some rail operators, the food service has been curtailed or suspended in some cases. On Alaska Railroad, there is a restaurant car that will be available, will be open this summer. Seat configuration has been changed, in many cases going to 50% capacity to ensure social distancing guidelines can be maintained. And of course, the trains are being sanitized on an ongoing basis throughout the day. And there is no paper changing hands on trains. I think that's something that we can see remaining in place going forward with train travel and other types of travel. now that many people have cell phones and that there are infrared scanners, whether you have a cell phone or not, all ticket control will be done in touchless fashion, and credit cards will be used on a tap or scanner basis for any payments that need to be made on board the trains. So those are the preliminaries out of the way, and we can start with our deep dive, taking a look at the fantastic itineraries available for exploring Alaska. Our most popular trip in Alaska is the Alaska Adventure 9-day trip, hitting on Seward, Anchorage, Talkeetna, and Denali. Denali, the highlight for many people visiting Alaska, so a lot of these trips will include that journey on Alaska Railroad into the heartland of Alaska to explore Denali National Park. So our first itinerary, the Alaska Adventure, starts off in Anchorage, which is a fantastic destination in its own right. It's the gateway to the north, and it is also home to a lot of cultural and historical places of interest. The Alaska Cultural Heritage Center, most notably, where you can see a little bit about the history of the native peoples of Alaska. Fantastic artworks on display. Traveling through Alaska by train, you're on Alaska Railroad, which has two classes of service. The economy or coach class is called Adventure Class on Alaska Railroad. Large, comfortable seats, lots of legroom, big panoramic windows. The first destination on this particular itinerary is Seward. You're traveling south from Anchorage down to Seward, where you have an included half-day excursion through the Kenai Fjords National Park, magnificent scenery, and a chance to see some of the marine wildlife. On Alaska Railroad, by the way, there are those two classes of service, and if you have a look on this picture, you can see double and single decker rail cars. The double decker cars are the Gold Star, which is the first class onboard Alaska Railroad. Here you have seats up top on the upper level, underneath the glass dome panoramic windows, and down below there's a restaurant where all the meals are served. The next stop on this particular itinerary is Talkeetna, which is a wonderful destination. It's a kind of a must-see in Alaska. You may remember a TV series from a few years ago called Northern Exposure, featuring a small town in Alaska called Sicily. That, in fact, was Talkeetna. Beautiful village en route between Anchorage and Denali. Lots of atmosphere, dates back to the gold rush of the turn of the century, and the buildings, the atmosphere of the town really kind of reflect that gold rush character and history. Also, lots to do in Talkeetna, jet boat tours. It's at the confluence of two great rivers, and it's kind of the gateway to Denali National Park as well. All of our itineraries in Alaska feature 2 days in Denali National Park, which is really the must-see. It's the highlight for many people, and a full-day excursion exploring all the must-see attractions, the scenic outlooks, and places of interest throughout Denali National Park. Wonderful scenery wherever you're traveling throughout Alaska on Alaska Railroad. And there you have a look at the dining car, which is the lower level in Gold Star service. Anchorage, again, is a wonderful part of any trip to Alaska. It is the big city in Alaska, the largest population center in the state. However, it is home to so many magnificent places within the city limits. For example, Potter Marsh, probably the most accessible wildlife viewing spot in Alaska. Freshwater marsh, where you can see over 130 species of migratory and nesting birds, and this is just a few miles from downtown Anchorage. The next trip I want to tell you about is the Grand Alaska Adventure with Alaska Railroad Northbound. The aspect of this trip that makes it unique and differentiates it from the previous itinerary that we looked at is that it goes all the way north to Fairbanks, the second largest city in Alaska and probably the biggest population, the northernmost big town in the United States. So again, this trip, like many of our Alaskan itineraries, starts with some time in Anchorage to explore. You can watch the float planes taking off from Lake Hood. And by the way, you can purchase as an optional addition to your trip a flight seeing excursion from Anchorage, going all the way up to Denali and flying around Mount Denali, the tallest peak in North America. There's a great look at the Gold Star first class onboard Alaska Railroad under the panoramic windows. And here's an idea of what you'll experience when you're traveling south to Seward and doing that half-day excursion through Kenai Fjords National Park, going on a catamaran right up close to the glaciers, watching them carving into the water, and of course, coming up close and personal with many species of marine wildlife, sea lions, seals, and of course, whales that you're very likely to see in Resurrection Bay. There you have the bar area of the Gold Star service in Alaska Railroad. Another look at Talkeetna, which again is a great place to partake in adventure activities. There are rafting tours. You can take jet boat tours down one of the great rivers. And of course, from Talkeetna, you're going to head back on Alaska Railroad right up into Denali National Park, where we stay right outside a few miles from the entrance to Denali National Park to set you up for that full day excursion going 92 miles right into the heart of Denali, right up close to the base of Mount Denali. And after your experience in Denali National Park, you'll be heading further north right up to Fairbanks. Fairbanks known to be one of the best places in the world to see the Aurora Borealis. Also, Fairbanks is north enough in latitude that during the summer months, you have about 3 months of complete daylight, 24-hour daylight. So it really is the land of the midnight sun. When you're in Fairbanks during the summertime, you can opt to participate in all kinds of adventures at midnight, perhaps go on a hike or play a round of golf at midnight, given that 24-hour daylight up there. Here's a trip that gives you a quick way to go and experience Denali National Park. 6 days, Denali National Park and Spencer Glacier. So you'll have 3 days in Anchorage with the added bonus of going out on the Glacier Discovery Train out to Spencer Glacier. This is a day excursion before heading up to Denali National Park. For many people, Denali is the highlight. That's the main thing that you want to hit. By the way, it's always a good idea to think of a rail journey in Alaska as an extension to a cruise that you may be doing. If you're booking a cruise for Alaska, perhaps in 2022, in the summer, these trips out of Seward are the perfect way to extend that cruise, getting you up into Denali National Park. And it needn't be a 9 or 10 day or 12-day itinerary. You can do a quick trip with a few nights overnight in Anchorage, going up into Denali to have that experience of America's probably one of the most famous wilderness areas throughout the United States. Also on this trip, you have the added bonus again of that journey aboard Alaska Railroad's Glacier Discovery Train. This starts from Anchorage, and you go out to visit the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center, home to brown and black bears, moose, caribou, wood bison, and more. The train then continues on to the Spencer Glacier whistle stop. There you'll be met by a guide with a raft to row you between icebergs with a panoramic view of Spencer Glacier and the surrounding mountains as a backdrop. So a fantastic day excursion experience from Anchorage before heading up to Denali National Park. Dining on board Alaska Railroad, if you opt for the Gold Star service, is fantastic. By the way, if you're in adventure class, you can purchase meals on board, but that would be at an additional cost. And it would be purchased from a snack car. If you're in Gold Star service, you have your own exclusive use restaurant, which is below the seating area, as we saw in those earlier slides of the double-decker rail car. The final itinerary I want to let you know about is a chance to go up all the way into the Arctic Circle. So you'd have 2 days in Anchorage. You'd then go up via Talkeetna to Denali National Park, again, traveling in Gold Star if you want to make that upgrade to add a little bit of luxury to your experience. And after Denali National Park, once again, you head up to Fairbanks. And when in Fairbanks, you have an excursion right up to the Arctic Circle. Spend the day venturing north to the untouched landscapes of the Arctic Circle. On your tour, you'll learn about the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, look down on the Yukon River, travel along the Dalton Highway, and search for Alaskan wildlife. If you want to just check out Denali, we have itineraries that facilitate that as well. Flying into Anchorage, spend an overnight in Anchorage, go up on Alaska Railroad to Denali, have your 2 nights there before returning to Anchorage, and another overnight. So it allows you to experience the magnificent scenery of Alaska from the windows of the train in the glass-domed observation car in adventure class, or from your own panoramic observation area at your seat in Gold Star service, traveling up into Denali with those 2 nights in Denali, staying at Denali cabins just close to the entrance to the park, and having your full day excursion through Denali National Park before returning to Anchorage. Again, Anchorage, just a fantastic city. You have nature right on your doorstep and the opportunity to see wildlife right within the city limits. In adventure class on Alaska Railroad, once again, everybody has access to the observation car. So at your seat, you have your big panoramic window, but there is an observation car that all passengers can go and hang out. You can sit at a table with your family members and enjoy the view from the panoramic windows. Folks, that brings us to the end of the presentation this morning. So as you can see, lots of options for exploring Alaska by rail, including all the destinations of interest on the Alaska Railroad route from Seward to Talkeetna, Anchorage, Denali, of course, and Fairbanks. Also going out to the Spencer Glacier on the Glacier Discovery Train, and up into the Arctic Circle. Lots of optional excursions and experiences that you can add to your trip, like flight seeing tours over Denali from Anchorage, jet boat from Talkeetna down the river, or going and meeting the mushers and the husky pups and doing a dog sledding adventure from Talkeetna as well. So hopefully this has given you some food for thought and some ideas for planning your next vacation, perhaps as an alternative to a cruise this year or next year, or if you are looking to cruise in Alaska, fantastic options to add an excursion up into Denali National Park or even further north to Fairbanks, in addition to your cruise vacation, connecting with your ship debarkation port in Seward. Once again, a fantastic promotion we have available at the moment to save up to $400 per person. And with that, that's my portion of the presentation wrapped up, and it's over to you for any questions that you may have. Just opening up my question panel, if you'll bear with me for a moment. I have a question here from Gilbert, who is asking, I've already paid for a 2-week Empire Builder to Seattle and then via across Canada. The borders are still closed. How can I switch at Alaska to the end? Gilbert, we'd be absolutely happy to do that. No problem to switch. You just need to call our reservations. You'll be put through to our guest relations department, who can help you amend, change your itinerary. The one thing to bear in mind is that naturally you can come into Canada. There is no rail access between Canada and Alaska anyway. Even during normal times, you can't take the train from Canada into Alaska. So we would need to figure out an alternate way for you to get from Seattle up into Alaska. You could do that by cruise. Some of the cruise lines have now um, uh, uh, arranged excuse me, I'm losing the words. There's a new bill that's been passed to allow the cruise lines to operate from Seattle straight up into Alaska. Previously, the cruises into Alaska had been suspended because you had to stop in a Canadian port. So the bill has been passed to change that, and the cruise lines are going straight from Seattle up to Alaska. So that's one way you could do it if you wanted to sort of include a cruise into your vacation. Otherwise, you'd have to fly up from Seattle into Alaska. Alternately, Gilbert, we can change your itinerary, to go into other parts of the U.S., given that the Canadian border is still closed and probably will be until the end of the summer, perhaps even into the winter of this year, depending on how things go with COVID. But you could do your trip if you're going over on the Empire Builder to Seattle. We could reroute it to go south down the Pacific coast, perhaps to San Francisco, to experience some of the other wonderful U.S. national parks. Just give us a call, and our guest relations team will be happy to figure out the best way to reroute your itinerary. Judy is asking, how would I get started? I'm from New York. I'd love to take a 9-day or more vacation. Judy, just give us a call at the number on the screen, 1-888-829-3040. That'll get you in touch with our Railbookers rail experts, and they will be able to talk you through all the possibilities for exploring Alaska. The itineraries we looked at today, most of them begin from Anchorage. They can all be customized to begin from Seward. So if you're coming into Alaska by sea, you can start your vacation in Seward. Otherwise, you'd be flying into Anchorage and go from there. And once again, our rail experts will help you put together your trip based on one of our pre-existing packages, which you can check out on our website. Or if you want to amend or customize or build a trip from scratch, you can do that as well. Folks, those appear to be all the questions that have come in this morning. So thank you once again for taking the time to join us. Hope you found this useful and informative, and we hope to see you on a future webinar and possibly on one of our rail vacations in the near future. Wherever your travels may take you, everybody, bon voyage. Thank you once again, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.